Hey friends, who's up for a challenge? Now, this is not a difficult recipe, it is just involved. And it's something that you'll probably want to put the effort and time into because it's bagels or pretzels, your choice. They're the same thing. I'll show you. So in a large bowl, I've got 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Just gonna mix that in. All right, then our water goes in. It's a 1.25 cups. And of course our starter. It's a cup of starter. More or less, you know, whatever. Great. All right, so I'm just gonna start to mix this. And you can certainly use my favorite tool, the end of a wooden spoon, which I forgot to grab. So I'm using a spatula, and it's totally doable. Just won't come together as nicely. Now we are most certainly gonna have to get our hands into this because this is it's a bread dough essentially, and it's not a high hydration dough. That is to say, it is a low hydration dough, which means it's got more flour than water. And so therefore it's gonna have to be kneaded, okay? So it's come together into a shaggy ball kind of thing, right? And it's to the point where I can get my hands into it. Again, clean hands, always. And I'm gonna have my flour at the ready. I imagine I'll probably have to add at least a 1/2 cup more, if not even a whole cup. So this is a 1/2 cup. I'm just gonna sprinkle maybe half of that in there first. Oh no, oh no, we're gonna need all that. So see, it's quite stringy and sticky, so I'm just gonna incorporate the flour here and there on my fingers and kneading. Again, this is something you can do on the counter if that is your jam. If it is, if you might be concerned with the mess, then knead in the bowl with me. You can use your largest bowl for this. It's much better. So this dough is a very nice dough. It's very elastic by the time we're done with it. And so it's you know, it's a pleasant sensation to knead. But you know, if you don't want to put all your elbow grease into kneading, then you sure as heck can use a stand mixer if you have a stand mixer. And if not, no big deal. It's only, you know, 5 to 10 minutes of muscle work, right? So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more. Maybe we won't need all that much. So what I'm doing to knead here, I'll bring it out on the counter so you can see what I'm doing. I'm basically pushing the dough forward, pulling it on itself, turning it quarter turn, pushing forward, folding it over, quarter turn, and so on. But I'm doing that in the bowl. And so I'm gonna continue kneading this, and we'll speed up this process so I don't bore you. And we'll catch up here in a few minutes. All right, so I'm gonna call this good. It's still a hair on the sticky side, but it's not too crazy. So what I'm gonna do is grab some olive oil. Now, people, you could be particular and you can wash your bowl out, and it would probably be fine if you didn't. And I'm gonna be lazy, and I'm not. I'm just gonna swirl some olive oil around in here. And I'm gonna let my dough ball go back in. You know, I probably could have added a little bit more flour. We'll find out if it matters. I've made pretzels and bagels many times, but only one other time with sourdough, and I find it to be pretty much the same. So that's pretty awesome. So we'll do a little drizzle on the top. We'll roll it around. This is just to keep the ball from sticking to the sides of the bowl too crazy. All right, so we've got it ready to put to bed. I'm just going to put the lid on it. Now, this will go in the fridge, but I want it to rest on the counter for 4 or 5 hours. So I'll do that, go about my business, and then tuck it in to bed in the fridge. And then it'll stay there overnight, and we'll make bagels / pretzels tomorrow. Now, let's say you don't want to do it tomorrow. That's fine. This dough can stay in the fridge for up to, 3 days or so. So it's ready whenever you are. So we'll come back tomorrow and start to shape. It's time to roll out those bagels or pretzels, whichever one you want, or both. I'll show you. Literally the only two differences between these two things are the shape and the water bath, which we'll talk about soon. So what I've done is I just took my dough out of the fridge and divided it into 12 equal portions. And I didn't bore you with this step because I measured everything out and made sure that they were all the same size. Now, you don't have to be this particular, but I felt like being particular. You will get a better end result because they'll all bake evenly. So just do your best. So let's venture, before we do this, this is very important. So this is where parchment paper becomes really important and also invaluable. So I've got my 2 baking trays ready, and I'm reusing parchment paper because you can do that. But the kicker is you have to grease your parchment paper. If you thought that nothing can stick to parchment paper, well, I assure you that it will, and this will. So do yourself a favor and spray the parchment paper. And you'll need 2 baking trays and 2 pieces of parchment, and you'll want to spray them both. You can thank me later. Now, we'll get to shaping. So these are cold, and so I just literally pulled them out. And we'll get to the donuts first. I'll show you 2 ways that you can do this. So first, notice I don't have much flour on my surface. That's what you want. I've got it at the ready just in case. So first we'll make bagels. And I'll show you 2 ways to make bagels. This is the way that I don't really prefer. But you make a snake, right? And then you connect the 2 ends. Stick those together. Really, really press them together. Yeah. And then you've got it. Bagel, right? Now, we want to exaggerate the center hole because as these rise, they are going to shrink or the center will shrink. So you might end up with a pretzel or a bagel bun, but hey, if that's your preference, then you just go for it. So I put that one on my greased parchment paper. Now let's talk about my preferred method of shaping bagels. And so you saw me kind of squeezing the edges into the center. So just squeezing the edges into the center with my thumb and then pinching the seam closed. And so we have kind of like this little package, right? So put the seam side down onto the non-floured surface. You'll make a cage with your hands. And so with just the circular motion, I'm only pushing down right here at the base of my fingers, and I'm not shoving it really hard, but I'm creating a boundary with my fingers. And it's going to make a tight skin. And this is how you make dinner rolls too, by the way. So there we are. Nice, tight little ball. Now, this is where the flour comes in. With a floured finger, you're going to poke your finger directly through the center of this ball, right? And then maybe with a few more floured fingers, we will gently begin to stretch and work the bagel shape open. Paying attention to maybe one side is a little bit more narrow, then don't stretch as hard there. Or if there's a thicker side, stretch more there. Yeah. So you've got your bagel shape. Now notice how it will kind of shrink and relax. Again, that's another reason why we need to exaggerate the hole, and then that will accommodate for that shrinking and relaxing. So put her on the pan. Now we'll do pretzels. I'll show you two ways to do this too. Kind of modern way. We'll make a snake of equal thickness. Quite long, so at least a foot long. And you're kind of pressing and moving across the palm and the fingers. So I don't know how long this is, maybe 16 inches. So I'll do this facing you. So you'll make a U. Yeah, a U. And then we'll make a heart. Okay. So then pull the one side, the edges in to cross, right? So we don't want to cross them just yet because we're going to switch them to cross again. So there's that extra twist. Okay. Now you're going to have to adjust it and exaggerate those holes a little bit. But there you are, a pretzel. Kind of an ugly one. Now let's do the traditional shape of pretzel. So we're going to leave it fat in the middle and really skinny and tapered on the ends. And having very little flour on your surface will help you here. But if you're just really struggling, then go ahead. You do you. So fat in the middle, tapered edges. And we'll do those little, make your heart and keep crossing, switcheroo, and tack it down. So, oof, that was hideous. But, so it's kind of thicker here and then skinnier at the top, like little arms, yeah. Okay, cool, cool. So now you know how to do it. Find whatever method you want to do. And if you want to make your bagels into pretzel flavor, this is your game here. This is your bagel and your pretzel game, so do whatever you want. You make the rules. So when I get these all shaped, I'll come back to you in a moment. So I've got them all shaped, and I can already tell that I did not exaggerate the holes as much as I should have, so learn from my mistakes, make them bigger, right? Because they haven't even risen yet, and when they rise, they will really squeeze up. So we might have buns, but hey, I'll show you what they look like. The next step is to spray them again. So spray or brush oil on the tops of these, and then we'll cover them up with plastic wrap and let them sit on the counter for about an hour so that they can rest and rise. And in the meantime, we'll get our water bath going, and that's the step that makes these different from other baked goods, a water bath. And we'll go about that in about an hour, so see you then. Hey, it's bath time! So the bagels have risen for about almost an hour and a half. And they've grown a little bit in size. They've gotten a little bit puffy in appearance. And so what we'll do is we'll make our water bath. And so if you want these to taste like bagels, then you're going to put 2 quarts of water in a big wide pot with 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now if you want these to taste like pretzels, you're going to put that 2 quarts of water and then 1/3 of a cup of baking soda. Now I've got 2 pots going here because I've got both, and here's how you do it. So you've got your parchment paper, and then you've got your clean hands, and just gently turn your bagel into your hand like that, and then gingerly put it into boiling water. It's got to be boiling, guys. And then also take note if your bagels sink or float. It's ideal if they float. If they don't, give them some more time. And I can usually do about 3 or 4 in a pan this size. And we're going to flip them over 30 seconds in. And try to do our best to remember which ones we put in first. And just careful, you know, it's hot, it's boiling water. Don't watch me. Yeah, so about 30 seconds or so, and then we'll fish them out. And we will do our best to strain as much water off of them as possible and then put them right back onto the parchment paper. So I'm going to do this with our pretzels too in our pretzel water. And then we'll put them in the oven. So my oven is preheated to 450 degrees. Make sure that's raring to go as well. And I'll set the timer for 8 minutes. Then after 8 minutes, I'll switch the trays, put them in for another 8 minutes, and check to see if they're done. Now, this is the time to put your topping on. So if you want that everything bagel seasoning, or for your pretzels, if you want that kosher salt to cast on top, as soon as they come out of the water bath, that's when you sprinkle them on. So there you go. So they're out of the oven, and I'm very pleased, as you should be too after you make your bagels and your pretzels, because it's a triumph. You know, it's not difficult, but there are many steps, and it's worth it. They're delicious. You're never going to get anything like a fresh baked pretzel or bagel straight out of the oven. And it's the best way to make friends. So notice the difference between the colors here. This is what that baking soda water did. That alkaline water kind of browned the tops of the pretzels, and that's what gives them that kind of almost metallic taste to traditional pretzels. Now with your bagels, you'll want to, when we take them out of the oven for after that first 8 minutes, to switch the trays. We will flip the bagels as well, because that will make them a little bit more round. If you omit that step, it's not a big deal. And so if you aren't going to get to these very soon, or maybe you won't eat them all within a few days, you might want to just slice your bagels and then stick them in the freezer. And then you can just pop them in the toaster whenever you're ready for them, and then top them however you wish. Now I might suggest making that soft cheese that we have a recipe for on our channel at CP at Home. So make that soft cheese and maybe make an herb flavor and spread those on your bagels, or maybe take some stone ground mustard and mix that in with your soft cheese, and then dip your pretzels into it. So that would be pretty dang good. So whatever you choose, we'd love to see your products, your pretzels or your bagels or both. So tag us at CP at Home, and I hope to catch you for the next recipe. Take care.